Hey, everybody. This is the time where we check out data to see what's really going on in the Salt Lake real estate market. Today is February 21st, and I will narrate because I know some of the numbers I'm going to share on my screen are difficult for you to see, but I'll enlarge it as much as I can and walk you through the latest and greatest, despite what you may hear in the news and media. First of all, this has been a long story of our market over the past some odd years, but it is the story of low inventory. So right now in Salt Lake County, if you include townhomes, condos, and single family homes for sale, there is 1,628 total properties for sale. I always like to segment how many are over a million, because that's kind of the benchmark of luxury. That should probably be defined more as 1.5 these days. But of roughly the 1,600, 297 are over a million in all of Salt Lake County. Another way to look at that is that properties over $1 million represent about 20%, just under 20% of the total inventory that's for sale. Okay. Now, what I like to do is contrast that with what is in escrow. And this tells us really kind of how hot the market is, what type of absorption we've got, and how quickly things are moving. Right now, again, just over 1,600 active, but 1,359 in escrow. What does that mean? That means we only have a little over a 5-week supply of all types of housing in Salt Lake County right now. Now, often people would say it's winter and the market will really pick up in spring, and that is true. But I've watched this for 20 years, and I will tell you that every February, even in a soft market, we see the amount of properties going into escrow really increase from what it was in November, December, and January. Some years that increase is over 60% from what it was over the past 90 days. This year, that increase so far is about 40%, which is still extremely significant. Let's also segment the under contracts as far as luxury. There are 106 properties over $1 million in escrow. So another way to look at that is the luxury properties over $1 million represent about 20% of what's actively up for sale, but they represent only about just under 7% of what is under contract. Okay, so a lot more stuff priced high, active for sale. That type of property over $1 million is not moving as fast as everything else, and there's about a 3-month supply of properties over $1 million, whereas there's just over a 5-week supply of all properties in Salt Lake. If we removed the luxury from that absorption rate, we would likely see that there's really less than a 4-week supply of housing under $1 million. Okay. The last thing we will glance at is what we typically look at is our month-to-month report of all sales in Salt Lake County. And again, I know this is difficult to see, but let me show you what stands out to me. I think the first and most important is that a lot of people have still been speculating a continued softening, or say that things aren't selling, or whatever you hear out there in the news and media. And we'll remember that last winter was relatively soft. In fact, May of 2022 was the all-time median price peak in our market. And then when interest rates went up, sales slowed and pricing declined a little bit starting back then. However, the interesting thing that stands out to me is if you go back to last winter, so let's say November of 2022, there were 828 total sales, and on average, sellers were getting 94% of their asking price, and median price on those 828 sales was $500,000. This past November, just about 90 days ago, there were 800 sales, median price was $499,950, and people got 98% of asking price. So it was almost equal. And price was stagnant from 2022 to 2023 if you're looking at November compared to November. and sales were almost the same. But list to sell price ratio went from 94 to 98%, meaning people came down in their asking price and got a little more realistic in the soft market, and properties were selling close to their asking price again. Then look at December and January. Okay. December last year, 790 sales. December this year, 836. Price last December, 480. Price this December, 489. January this year, 711 sales. January last year, 603. January last year, 492 in price, 96% list to sell price ratio. January this year, 500, 97% list to sell price ratio. So what does that tell me? Despite rates still being high, there was a little spur with rates dropping in the low sixes during December. We now have a 2-month in a row track record of this year outpacing last winter. So this winter outpacing last winter by unit sales and pricing. And that's still with interest rates high. So what do I expect in this crystal ball? With under contracts increasing over the last 3 weeks by 40%, with December and January having more unit sales and higher median price, even though interest rates are still where they're at, it's extremely likely that we not only see a regular seasonal spur in the spring with unit sales increasing and price increasing, but I think it'll be greater than average. If I had to speculate on the actual numbers, because inventory is so low, it does look like we're headed for another multiple offer on almost everything you do spring, especially if rates come down even a little bit, and increased sales, more competitive environment, and pricing is increasing despite rates, despite what everyone thinks. So from here on out, at least from February right now to June, it only gets more expensive for people to wait and to look, to the tune of probably between 2 and 3% a month starting right now. So March, April, May, we'll see median price move up 2 to 3% per month, which means it's possible that by June, median price is at about 10% higher than where it is right now. That's significant. That means a $500,000 house is $550 in June. So hopefully this helps you get some looky-loos off the fence. If people are really questioning what's the right move despite high interest rates, we can definitely have these talks with them. And there's still a small window where buyers are possibly able to negotiate some closing cost credits or rate buy down credits from sellers, because it has still been a bit of a slow winter. I suspect that will really start evaporating through February and into March. And so I would say that window is closing in the next 2 to 4 weeks. So now's the time to get that very tail end of the soft market and perhaps get a little more negotiation. By April, it will likely be madness again, and even more madness if we see rates even come down, 0.5% to 1% during that time frame. All right. Hope this helps. Have a good week.